The marketing for this movie has been absolutely nuts, but now that I've finally seen it for myself, does it actually live up to the hype? And perhaps more importantly, the question we all want to know the answer to, who is Argylle? What's up, my dude? Your friendly neighborhood Tony here, and as I do with all my movie reviews, I'm going to give you a little bit of information about Argylle, who made it, what it's about, all that good stuff. Then I'll go into the things I did and did not like about the movie, the pros and cons. And finally, I'll let you know who I think Argylle is for, if anyone. If that kind of thing sounds cool to you and you want to keep up to speed on all the new big movies that are coming out in theaters and on streaming, make sure you subscribe. In Argylle, a reclusive author that writes espionage novels about a secret agent and a global spy syndicate realizes that the plot of the new book she's writing starts to mirror real-world events in real time. So Argylle, if you couldn't tell by the trailers or any of what I just said, it is a spy action comedy movie written by Jason Fuchs? I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce his last name, but I'm pretty sure how to not pronounce it. He's the guy that wrote Wonder Woman, the original Wonder Woman movie, not the Wonder Woman 1987, I think it was, the sequel that wasn't nearly as good. He also wrote Pan and Ice Age Continental Drift. So take from that what you will. Argylle is directed by Matthew Vaughn, who you probably know from directing all of the Kingsman movies. He also directed X-Men First Class, which is really one of the best X-Men movies period, as well as Kick-Ass and a movie that I feel like not a lot of people have seen but is really, really good. It's called Layer Cake. So if you're into kind of that spy action James Bond-ish type movie, definitely check out Layer Cake when you get a chance. It even stars James Bond himself, Daniel Craig, but this was before he was James Bond. Argylle is going to be in theaters this weekend and is rated PG-13 for, of course, a lot of over-the-top violence, a little bit of sexuality, and one F-bomb that I could count, which honestly felt completely out of place. It feels like they just threw it in there because you're allowed to at least one time in a PG-13 movie. And the movie runs about 2 hours and 20 minutes-ish, and we'll go over that a little bit later on in the review. Argylle stars, are you ready for it? Here we go. Bryce Dallas Howard, Henry Cavill, Sam Rockwell, Bryan Cranston, Catherine O'Hara, Dua Lipa, John Cena, Samuel L. Jackson, and Ariana DeBose, who's really kind of killing it right now. Now, before we get into the pros and cons, I'm gonna let you know my expectations going into this movie so you know where I'm coming from. For one, I am a pretty big Matthew Vaughn fan. I like a lot of his work, most of it. I love the way he blends in just ridiculous, over-the-top action with slapstick comedy. Although, I will say there have been a couple of movies of his that didn't quite do it for me. For the most part, I enjoy his work. Also, as I just mentioned, the cast is absolutely stacked in this movie. So just looking at that, when you have that amount of really talented actors and actresses that are willing to come on board with a project, it's not always a sure sign that the movie itself is going to be good, but generally, you can kind of extrapolate some positive from that. Now, looking at the trailers, I had the idea that the movie is, of course, going to be really cheesy and really fun, which are a couple of things that I enjoy in movies. And also, of course, I've heard a lot of speculation about who may or may not be involved with the movie as far as Taylor Swift. So, you know, I was a little curious to see what we got there. So yes, my expectations were solid, but still kept in check. But overall, I was definitely looking forward to it. But did it live up to those expectations? Well, let's go ahead and get started with my pros. For one, and probably the biggest thing, is that this movie knows exactly what it's trying to be. It's really basically a parody on the whole spy thriller genre, both in movies and in books. And it leans into that right off the jump. So for me, a measurement of success with movies is, did they know what they were trying to do? And did they accomplish what they were trying to do? And I really feel like they did that here. Now, whether or not you think that's a good thing is going to be up to you, but at the very least, I think they went for something and they absolutely stuck with it. Also, of course, another pro is that the cast across the board was surprisingly great. Yeah, I know you have a lot of heavy hitters, a lot of people that we know to be good actors and actresses, but even in situations like with Dua Lipa, I thought she did pretty well in her role. I was very pleasantly surprised. You know, a lot of times you stunt cast for these different positions and it kind of falls on its face, but I think she did a pretty good job. And so yeah, if even what I would consider to be the weakest link as far as acting ability is concerned was good, then overall I think the movie was a success as far as that's concerned. Now, the two main stars of the movie are going to be Sam Rockwell and Bryce Dallas Howard, and they have a really good chemistry in the movie. They really play off each other well. It's of course stuff that we've all seen before as far as having this person who is this kind of super confident and capable and aware person in their environment, helping out and trying to basically escort mission, this scared and uncomfortable character throughout the movie. So that dynamic we've seen a lot, but it really works with them. I think they really played off each other very well. And I think that's super important because they are the two main characters of the movie. You spend the most time with them by far. Another pro is that the movie absolutely nails so many of the action sequences. Now, again, it's going for that over the top, wild, completely unrealistic kind of style of action. And as Matthew Vaughn tends to do, there are definitely a few scenes in the movie that are super memorable, ones that you'll be talking about after you leave the theater. So I really like the way that he gets very creative with his action sequences and also the way that he blends music into them. It straight up becomes like a dance number or a music video at times. Another thing that I really enjoy is the way that they blend in the real world situations with the fictional world of Argylle in the book. It'll make a lot more sense if you actually see the movie, but they do some interesting things where they cross over back and forth between reality and fiction. And it's not quite breaking the fourth wall because if you're not familiar, breaking the fourth wall is when a character in a story addresses you as the audience. And so they don't necessarily do that, but within the context of the movie, there is fourth wall breaking from the book to the movie itself. Again, it'll make a lot more sense if you see the movie. It honestly kind of reminds me of She-Hulk. And now, I don't know if you've seen the show She-Hulk. I don't recommend it necessarily, but it's one of the Marvel series that was on Disney Plus. And at points in that movie, they basically break the fourth wall, and I guess mild spoilers for She-Hulk, they kind of address the way that the story is being told directly in the show itself. And so this movie does that, where things start happening that are connected to the book that the main character is writing, and they kind of address how silly it is at times. So it plays on itself. It becomes pretty meta. And I think overall they did a pretty good job with that. Now, of course, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. There are definitely a few things I didn't like about Argylle. So we'll get into that with the cons. But before we do, I want to let you know that this video is being sponsored by you. That's right, I'm just a small little channel here without any big corporate sponsors or anything like that, so just by watching the video, you're really helping me out. If you want to be super dope and show your support in the easiest possible way, do me a solid and like the video, and maybe drop a comment down below. Let me know, what is your favorite spy action movie? Or what do you think about Matthew Vaughn's movies in general? You can also now join as a channel member if you want to help support me financially, or just subscribe for free if you want to keep up to speed on all the new big movies coming out. So either way, whatever you do, I appreciate it. All right? On to the cons. Okay, so the first big con is gonna tie into one of the big pros. And that is that, yes, we know that this movie is purposely being cheesy and ridiculous and over the top and kind of parodying a lot of that spy action comedy type of movie. But in my opinion, I think it goes a little too far. And it does kind of waddle on that line of making fun of the concept and actually becoming the thing that it's making fun of. And so there are definitely times throughout the movie where you'll be rolling your eyes and not necessarily laughing at the joke that the movie is making, but laughing at the fact that the movie is trying to make that joke, if that makes sense. It's the difference between laughing with and laughing at. Another big thing that stood out to me as a con is the CG in the movie. It is pretty bad at times. And I feel like this is beating a dead horse. You know, a lot of Hollywood movies have had terrible CG lately. And I know there's a lot of issues with the CG production companies and being underfunded and overworked. It just really sucks to see that when they pour as much time and money and energy into a movie like this, they can't quite get the CG right. Another thing I'll throw in there, which is more of a minor nitpick, is that this movie is produced by Apple, and it is so apparent throughout the movie. There are scenes where everyone has an Apple computer. There are moments where people have multiple iPads and iPhones, and it's just Apple product placement everywhere throughout the movie. It gets a little ridiculous. And probably the last big thing that I'll throw in for the cons is something that we touched on at the very beginning of the review, and that is that the movie is about 2 hours and 20 minutes long, and it feels every minute of that. There comes a point in the story where it feels like the movie is just tacking on scene after scene, as if it should have ended already, but they had a few other big scenes that they wanted to throw in there and they just didn't feel like cutting them, so they just tacked them onto the end, and that they really didn't care how it impacted the flow of the story. So yeah, it commits one of those cardinal sins where the movie is just too freaking long. Honestly, if they'd shaved off 20 to 30 minutes at the end there, I think it would have been so much better for it. So all right, you've heard the pros and the cons. Who do I think Argylle is for? Well, For one, I think it is a fun action kind of popcorn flick. So if you're looking for something kind of silly and mindless and fun to watch in theaters this weekend, I think this is a solid choice. Also, of course, it doesn't hurt that there's not really anything else in theaters right now. And in addition to a lot of the action and comedy, there is a bit of romance in the movie, so this could pass as a Valentine's Day kind of date at the theaters. Now, of course, if you don't like big, dumb, silly, over-the-top action movies, this is not going to be for you. If you didn't enjoy the Kingsman movies that Matthew Vaughn did, this is definitely not going to work. But if you're open to that kind of thing, if you just want to have a silly, dumb, fun time at the theaters, I think you should probably check out Argylle. Either way, if Argylle sounds interesting to you, it's in theaters this weekend. If you've already seen it, definitely let me know what you think in the comments below. And of course, if you just want to keep up to speed on all the new big movies that are coming out in theaters and on streaming, make sure you subscribe. All right, my dude, I'll catch you in the next one. Be good.